Hands
his angle
from
there.
Nathan,
Nice,
big
nice
left
kick.
Here comes Jordan,
Jordy come back with those hands again.
Hey yo, it's your boy Shane here. Before we start today's episode, we have a new sponsor on board. So getting behind the Combat Chat podcast now is Manscaped, who are the best in the world for men's below the waist grooming. Their products are precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's performance package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle, is here. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free shipping worldwide with the code COMBATCHAT, all one word. If my maths correct, that's about 8 million balls. Okay, fellas, let's be honest. There's always that story of us trying to trim the hedges, mow the lawn when in the younger days, but even probably now, because we don't want anything scraggly down here. We don't want our budgie smugglers to look like they're tarantula smugglers. Okay, we've got to keep it fresh. Okay, and this is where the lawnmower 4.0 comes in place, and I've used it myself. And it's great. I got nothing but good things to say about it, actually. So, I'm going to kind of keep everything pristine from now on because Manscaped's on board. And it doesn't stop there. You also got the Weed Whacker, which is good for the nose hairs, the ears hairs. You also have the ball deodorant, the ball toner. So after you smooth it and kind of moisturize some of them, they're going to be smooth as eggs. Who doesn't want to touch them after that? For real. So in saying that, it's time to take care of yourself. Go to manscaped.com and get 20% off and free shipping with the code COMBATCHAT, all one word. So remember, to get 20% off, free worldwide shipping, put in Combat Chat in at manscaped.com. And remember, unlock your confidence and always use the right tools with the job with Manscaped.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Combat Chat Podcast. Checking in midweek for a little update. Just myself, of course. Didn't manage to get an episode out on the weekend, just a couple of timing issues, and we cannot let Eruption Muay Thai go past without a little bit of a preview. What's new with me? I'm sure you didn't ask. As of yesterday, I think you might have seen on your socials today, back on Rebellion Muay Thai 26 against Andy Sahovsky from Czech Republic, currently based in Thailand. We got told, I think Wednesday or Thursday, the fight was off. We've had a couple of opponents for this show, some crazy ones. We'll tell the full story when it's all done, but it was looking like there was nothing for us. We pretty much settled on not fighting. And then, kind of Monday, Tuesday, got word that there was an opponent to bring in. So nothing really changed. I didn't leave the gym, just kept training. But what a roller coaster. We're back. So really looking forward to that, heading down to Melbourne in 2 weeks alongside my teammate Soraya Hamami, who will take on Joanne La in an awesome match. But we'll talk about that more in future. Also this weekend, new initiative from our excellent sponsor, Warriors of the Mongkon. At HQ, a lot of you will probably have seen on your socials the beautiful Thai-style gym that Owen and Warriors have built as a kind of headquarters. A seminar with Lewis Regis. I was there kind of helping out. It was sick. The sun was out. Weather was absolutely perfect. If you've not seen the Warriors HQ gym, get onto Instagram, Facebook, Warriors of the Mongkon, just have a look at some of the pictures. It is so cool. Had the outdoor mat set up. I think there was 20 people there to learn some techniques from Lewis. Lewis, of course, an excellent fighter and an excellent teacher too. Ran through some of his different concepts. It was a cool mixed level seminar. And there was really new, kind of inexperienced beginners there, but there was also a couple of pro fighters like Kywheat Jones was there, and everyone was enjoying it, which was really cool. And hung out at the end. Lewis is a workhorse, man. He taught the seminar for, I think it was a 3-hour seminar, and then got on the barbecue for 4 hours. I think cooked an entire cow, Brazilian style barbecue. It was really, really cool. Just hung out, talked Muay Thai, and just got to meet people from various gyms. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that initiative continue to grow. I'm interested to hear who people want to see seminars from. I think the vibe is really good. It's really relaxed, friendly, open to everyone. So I'm pretty keen to see who is on the bill next. I've been talking to Warriors about getting involved in some other stuff, so stay tuned for that. We're making some plans. A lot of cool stuff happening at Warriors of the Moncun gym. And you should get online and get yourself some Warriors of the Moncun gear, wotmmuaythai.com.au, and you can even get 10% off if you put in Hugh 10 at the checkout. So what's not to love? Right, let's get into it. This episode, we will just do a little bit of a mini episode, a bit of a run through of the Eruption Muay Thai card. For my notes here, I probably should have looked this up before. What number are we up to for Eruption? Eruption something. I'll put it as the title. I'll give a couple. I'm going to focus in on the main card here, but I'll give a couple of shouts to fights that I think are of interest from the undercard. Adam Shotbolt from PTJ is really impressive. I commentated his last fight at Yokkao, and I've probably been at all his fights, and he's coming along really well. Seems to kind of just be finding his feet and coming down in weight little by little. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him fight again. He's very good. They all are at PTJ. They're a good stable. I like Quang Pham from Victoria in the second fight. He'll be really good to watch. Very technical, has been in a couple of great wars. So will be a good one to watch. My recent opponent, Braden Johnson versus Liam King, I think is a really good match. Natalie Pavlidis is on the undercard. She's quite a big name on the Australian scene. I was chatting to her the last time I was up in Queensland. I know her reasonably well. She's got a couple of big fights on deck for the second half of the year. So I think this one's a pretty important one for her against Bronte Simpson. I know they've made this match a couple of times and it's failed to come to fruition for whatever reasons. That's a really fun one for the undercard. This is a loaded card. You've got pretty big names all the way down to the first fight. And Kyle Jeweler, fair play to him, late replacement against Manoli Kamburis. Admittedly, I know not so much about Manoli. I have seen some highlights coming out of him. I believe undefeated, 6 fights, 6 wins, South Australian. I think Pinky will be coming up to corner him. A bit of a mixed stylist. I know he's got a background across a variety of martial arts. So some good knockout power. That's going to be a fun one to kind of see. A South Australian prospect making his way out to compete interstate. Was on power play also recently, so starting to make his way around the country. So that's a few to keep an eye on the undercard. Like we said, a big card. There's really no kind of low-end fights here. There's big names all the way through to the very beginning. But let's get stuck into the main attractions, and we'll just give a few minutes to each fight, talk through the matchups, and I'll give you a little bit of my thoughts and kind of what there is to see here. Not sure exactly on the order here. I'm just looking at the pictures, but I'll read them as I see them. Darren Chen and Quinton Smith. See, this is an interesting fight to me because I feel this is like as opposite a stylistic clash as you can put together. You've got Darren Chen, spent quite a long time in Thailand training at Sentai Muay Thai, a very nice, good Thai rhythm. Knows how to score the points, a good kick stylist. I commentated his last fight against Jordan Fielding on Jump to Sydney, and that was a very strong performance. Really knew how to just kind of dictate the pace of that fight, control the scores. It was a battle the whole way through, but Darren really managed to win the chess match there. Against another, quite fundamental Thai stylist in Jordan Fielding. This fight, that's not the case. Quinton Smith is extremely unorthodox. I suppose you would call his style something of like an MMA influenced kind of style. He's high pressure. He likes to kind of like barge forward across the ring, likes to spin, throw these unorthodox techniques. I think it's going to be an interesting battle in the sense that Darren will only have 3 rounds here. Darren, like we're talking about that traditional Thai style, likes to kind of set the pace, likes to have a look at his opponent, and what you'll typically find is as a fight progresses, Darren's very good at kind of landing those scores. He's got a really sweet right kick, knows how to find a home for it, find his distance, and spend kind of the mid to latter rounds landing and scoring with that kick. He won't have the opportunity to kind of start at the pace that maybe he likes in this fight, and I think Quinton will probably try to exploit that. Not necessarily deliberately, like from a game planning perspective, try to exploit that. I just think it's his natural go-to style. will be to kind of try to pull that pressure on and I guess kind of steal this fight from Darren while he's trying to find his feet. So that's going to be interesting. Yeah, looking forward to seeing what Darren does to address the fact that it's just a 3-round fight. Will we see Darren coming out of the gate a little bit harder? Will we see him employing some different tactics? Let's see. I know, like, if he gets going with that right kick early, he's going to make it difficult for Quinton to kind of cover space at this in those hard bursts that he likes to do. But of course, Darren has got to watch for unorthodox techniques. It's been probably some time, I have to say, given that he came back from Thailand and has typically been matched with more Thai style fighters. It's been some time since we've seen this much of a clash for him. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he deals with that and sort of what planning they do over there. But they're a really smart corner, so I know they'll have a good plan. And I think in these types of battles where it's sort of unorthodox versus Thai style, it's really a matter of if you can keep your wits about you. There is a lot of openings for the things that Darren likes to do well. So if he can play a counter game, but of course cannot give too much space to such a wildly aggressive opponent, that's going to be, as far as like, just kind of opposite styles, this is the best example of that kind of fight on this card. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And good to see Darren up in Queensland. It's a different kind of stable of fighters for him to mix it up with. I'm pretty keen to see how this one looks. Moving up the card, this is going to be a fun one. Anthony Papaz is, like, for me, one of the, I don't know, we say, like, quiet achievers of Australian Muay Thai. Like, he never ever has an easy fight. Just seems to be, I don't know if it's just like the weight that he's at. He's a pretty small guy. What weight is this fight at? It's not much. 61 kilos. So of course, when you're getting sort of to those lower ends, high end ties are going to be common choices of opponent. But Papaz just seems to, I've seen him fight across a really wide array of weights with, like, some crazy big name opponents. Like, I recall being there when he fought Got Serenoi in his comeback fight. He's just, I don't think he knows how to say no to a match. And he puts on some sick fights. He's what I would describe, I think, as a beautifully structured fighter. Like, he moves very well. He's got a real strong stance, nice tight guard, and really likes to, like, I suppose he's got like a pressure, like a clean pressure style. He likes to stay on the front foot, likes to throw his hands a lot, but not wildly aggressive. Just likes to bring that nice kind of like compact guard, that strong stance into the pocket and kind of make it a kind of pressure fight. But he works through his counters really nicely, like plays that good sort of rhythm game really well, and has had some absolutely crazy fights. Like, I'll never forget his fight on Rogue against Null. Was kind of getting outscored by a tricky tie and then just flipped the script and dropped him in the second round. That one went through to a draw. But he's a good technician and a good heart fighter, like a really, really entertaining guy to watch. I always like to watch Papaz fight, a huge fan of his. But again, doesn't know what an easy fight is. He's going to fight Aronalai, who is I think the trainer at Fight World, if I'm not mistaken. It's been some time since he's fought. I remember him doing a stint in boxing, but he's had around 400 fights, like just something ridiculous. A real technical stylist, quite tricky from what I've seen, and a very accomplished Thai fighter, Channel 7 Stadium and the like. I was reading some of the pre-fight notes for this, and he said back in the day, in describing his own style, he says, back in the day I was a knee fighter, but now I like to punch. So I think it's a little bit of like, maybe he's adjusted as the years have gone by and wants to use a style that conserves a little less energy. So I see this one being a bit of a war. I think Arano is going to press forward and want to trade some hands with Papaz, who that's what he likes to do. I see the two sitting in the pocket. I think it's going to be a matter of, it is just a 3-round fight, so I think I can see Aronalai putting his foot on the gas a little bit he's not got to worry too much about conserving energy for those later rounds. I think he's going to try to sort of make Papez feel his power a little bit, outsmart him in the pocket perhaps, but Papez has youth on his side. I think he's going to be trying to, make his physical presence felt against probably a bit smaller opponent. Just make him kind of carry that weight and really sort of make him feel rusty. I think if Papez plays his typical game, that march forward, strong style, that's probably what's going to pay dividends for him, is sort of trying to wear his opponent out and make him feel like he's not been in there for a while. Probably the longer this fight goes on and the more Arona can get comfortable and sort of find his feet again, the better his chances get. So we'll be interested to see if Papez plays that kind of game, in particular in the 3-round setting, just tries to start really hard and not give Arona the chance to get into the fight. Again, another one I'm really, really looking forward to seeing. I think Papez, quite achiever, just crazy fights, and I'm sure he's got plenty more in the pipeline too. And I like that about, the Strikeforce guys in general. They're not scared of a challenge. Papez especially, I've just seen him fight nothing but high caliber opposition every single time I've ever seen him in the ring. So huge fan of his, and glad to see him getting a run up towards the top of the card here on Eruption. That'll be great. Next, again, I could be speaking in the wrong order here, but I think it's right. This is an interesting one. Brooks Psycho Cooper versus Claire Baxter. Claire Baxter seems to be back on the scene after a little bit of a layoff. She recently got a unanimous points win over Leonie Max, who I'm sure she's fought at least 4 times, maybe 5 times, up there in Queensland. To the very best of my knowledge, is training in Victoria. So a couple of repeat performances up in Queensland for her. Now, this is an interesting one. It's, I suppose, I want to say it's youth versus experience, but Brooke Cooper's had a lot of fights too. 22 years old is Brooke Cooper and has been fighting since she's about 7. Has been on the scene forever, but is still super, super young, and I think is now really starting to find her style and find her feet as she's sort of racked up this fight. She's had somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 fights. Really quite experienced. Majority in Queensland, but she loves to fight. She's one of these Queenslanders. Has been dipping her toes in boxing through the Infliction, which is cool, kind of building that bridge between Muay Thai and boxing fights. And she won like a WBC Oceania title or something in boxing. So good with the shoes on. It will be interesting to see how that new experience in boxing kind of, if at all, influences her Muay Thai game, because I suppose she's got like a little bit of a background in kind of karate or like a traditional martial arts sort of background. So there is these unorthodox elements to her style already. Adding that kind of potentially higher caliber boxing to her offense will be interesting. I think in terms of the match here, now we're getting into the 5-round end of the card. I think the 5-round format here definitely favors the style of Claire Baxter. Claire is a very kick and knee oriented fighter, really likes to get into the clinch and make it kind of like a drawn out, kind of tire you out sort of style, that more conventional Muay Thai cadence to sort of build as the rounds progress and sort of smother. What I have seen from Claire, for example, in her fight with Zopa Turek, is I think this was a few years ago now on Siam to Sydney. I remember Zoe kind of just swarming and not really giving Claire the chance to set her game up, I suppose. I think there's just like Zoe was never in one place and Claire was sort of plodding forward and trying to work her down and just not quite ever establishing her timing. That I can see being a similar approach for Brooke Cooper here. Very high volume, very high output, just kind of, and she's super, super fit. So that's something she'll be looking to use to her advantage, just continuing to just never really let Claire get started. However, I do remember as well in that fight with Zoe, Claire started to land kicks really nicely and do some good work with knees towards the back end of the fight. Not quite enough to snatch the win back, but that could potentially, I think stylistically there are some similarities here, and that could be how things play out here. So an interesting clash. Like Claire Baxter is very, very experienced, a WMC and WPMF world champion. Has spent a lot of time in Thailand. In her last couple of fights, like I said, there was a little bit of layoff, like everyone had layoff. But on the other side of that, went to Lion fight and fought Antonina Shevchenko. So has been in there with some really, really world-class fighters. And that's a really good test for Brooke Cooper, because I don't know how many people in Australia are really left for Brooke Cooper. She's, like we said, she seems to fight every 5 minutes. Has fought the majority of her weight class. I'm sure there are some fights around to be made in Australia, and Eruption and Infliction, these promotions really do back her because she's quite a big name out there. So I'm sure there's opportunities to bring fighters in. But yeah, a great test against a really experienced kind of world level fighter. A win here would really kind of elevate Brooke Cooper's name and start some interesting conversations for who's next and kind of what to do with her next, because it's, yeah, like I said, she's kind of tearing through everyone at the weight class and just fights crazy active. But Claire Baxter, like we said, is back in the win column over her rival Leonie Max recently. So let's see how she looks, kind of fresh off of a win, getting kind of back in the swing of things. I think this is a really good fight, and a fun stylistic clash again. Getting up to the semi-main event of the evening, I think this one is the people's fight. People are super excited for this one, and with good reason. Two guys that are making names, one that I'll, of course, be watching very closely, along with a lot of Australia's super welterweights. Cruz Briggs, Eastside Muay Thai in New South Wales versus Jonathan the Prodigy Iulu. This is a really good fight. I think it's one of those fights that's got people talking, which I always really like to see. Let's think about the stylistic battle a little bit here before we kind of start talking fight context. I was looking at my notes that the Eruption team sent me before the show, and Iulu describes his style as Thai style with island power. And I think that is a really good way to describe Jonathan Iulu. He's got a nice, relaxed, measured style. He's a huge kicker, just with this venomous power behind him. A lot of guys have fallen to his kicks, be they to the leg or to the body. He's just really good at just holding his rhythm, timing guys as they come in, and just basically chopping them in half. He fought Jabar Askarov in a K1 fight in his last bout and absolutely minced Jabar's right side. Just smashed it with kicks, turned it purple. I guess but I mean, like, that being said, he's a very tidy boxer also. I think timing is one of his best attributes. And that really plays into that kicking style world, but has a good boxing game. And we saw him against, also on Eruption, against Yod Tongchai from SRG. He can really get into an elbow war too. So where we see these elements of Jonathan's game that kind of have become trademark against a fighter who can push him to different places, there is a lot more that he can do. There's a lot of interesting areas to watch for here, and I think that's why this match is so much fun, because when we go to the other side of the ring, you get Cruz Briggs. Cruz can do a lot too, but I think how I would describe him just at like a surface level is he's a pressure fighter. Like if we recall Cruz's last fight against Kim Allen Siam to Sydney, he basically ran Kim down from the first second of that fight, like relentless aggression. And you look at how that plays out, is that what Cruz tries to do right off the bat against Iulu? Just close that space, not leave room for those big kicks, and sort of smother and kind of not allow Jonathan the distance that he likes? Or do we see Cruz hang back a little bit more with respect for that power that Jonathan carries and kind of try to neutralize those kicks from the outside before getting to work himself? I don't know. Let's see. I think this one's going to be a battle. It's not. Cruz is a guy who Look, both are serious knockout fighters, and will be interesting to see if that, the power on both sides of the ring kind of cancels out and we see these guys sort of respect each other and start a little bit slower. And I think they're probably going to meet in the center, knowing both of them. I think it's the only way. Cruz knows, especially, just to get on that front foot and come for war. But yeah, a really interesting. I'm fascinated to see if this one gets into the fourth and the fifth rounds, kind of what's it look like, because both are habitual knockout fighters. So how does the stylistic match play out? How does Jonathan deal with the pressure of Cruz Briggs versus how does Cruz kind of make his way into that close sort of dirty range that he likes, understanding that Jonathan is such a huge kicker. Let's see, really, really fun match and some massive fights await the winner of this one. I'm excited to see it go down. Yeah, this is a really, really exciting card. But to me, that's the fight. I mean, like, they're all fights to watch. That's a serious fight to watch. Iolu and Cruz is a really, really quality match. And Eruption have done a sick job with this card. But before we close out, let's go to the main event. Yeah. I was talking about my next fight at the start of this episode and what a roller coaster that was. Fair play to the Eruption team for getting this one over the line. We had James Honey. We had him on the other week. If you haven't seen it yet, scroll down your YouTube feed and see our catch up with James Honey. At the time, he was matched in a rematch with Jay Tonkin. He fought Jay on a previous Eruption show. Very, very close and somewhat contentious 3-round decision. Since then, James has been in crazy good form. He just picked up a win over Brown Pinas, one championship star, on War on the Shore in the Goldie. So they were going to run it back 5 rounds for the Eruption title. And then Jay's had to pull out. I'm not sure exactly why. Maybe he's boxing now. Or I don't know. I don't know. But so the call was out. They were scrambling for an opponent for James. Fighting James Honey on short notice is a tall order. So it was difficult to find someone who wasn't already matched and who was willing to step up to that fight. Within Australia, there not a lot of hands went up, and Will Chope said, yeah, I'll come over and do it. We saw Will recently fight Charlie Bubb, ex-MMA fighter, turned every style journeyman. He's had like 100. Look, it was fair play. It was a fight to get on and keep James on the show, but I don't think anyone was particularly interested in that fight. And personally, I don't think that would have worked out particularly well for Will Chope. But then that fight fell through too, and this is all going down this week. And then quite an interesting story here. Cedar, J Power Roof Phuket, formerly Cedar Sitsong Pino, was booked to come into Australia to fight Toby Smith on Domination, which I think might have been the same weekend or it's the weekend after or something like that. Something's happened to the Toby fight. I couldn't say exactly what, but I guess Toby's out. But Cedar was on his way over, and most importantly, had his visa approved, because that's the difficulty in getting opponents in from Thailand at the moment. And so Eruption just managed the old switcheroo. Cedar was coming here to fight anyway. Well, he's coming to Perth. Might as well be a different country going over to the Gold Coast, but he was on his way over to fight. Visas were all good. So they managed to get Cedar into the fight. James Honey, like we've talked about many times on this show, is a complete gangster and just said, I don't care. He stepped up in weight a little bit to fight Cedar and has taken a big step up in opposition, like across opponents. We know James is a pretty difficult dude to bother. I doubt he cared. And we talked about the Strikeforce guys' attitude before as well. They kind of just say yes to everything, which is what we like to see. So crazy match with some really big implications here for James Honey. Cedar, to be honest, especially recently, I've not seen a ton of him fight. I know he's been he's a big Thai. He'll fight as heavy as 79 kilos. This one coming in at 74. So it's not kind of like oftentimes at these sort of matches in the mid 70s, you sort of get, the Aussies twice the size of their opponent, but that's not the case here. James has stepped up in weight to make this happen. A big knockout fighter I know and has been fighting on kind of the entertainment shows over in Thailand, your Muay Hardcore, Super Champ. I've seen a couple of big knockouts with knees, so it will be interesting to see his approach against James. James has been moving from strength to strength recently, so I know he's really excited. I talked to him about, I mean, they actually threw out, I probably can't say exactly who, but there were some crazy opponents in the pipeline to replace Jay for this fight against James. I chatted to him about a couple of them, and I'm sure some of these are future opponents. So, like, there are some really, really exciting fights happening for James Honey in the near future on Eruption. And this is a cracker match. I think James, we were talking to him when we had him on the show about some of the changes he's made to his training approach recently, and he's moving really well. Like he always had really good hands, but he's got quite like a good tight boxing game now. Very comfortable to kind of play off the counter. Plays at a lot of kind of can switch his rhythm really nicely. We saw that against Brown. He was playing like kind of like a largely a counter boxing game, but then towards the end really switched it up to this intercepting elbow, cut Brown really nicely. So let's see how some of these stylistic changes for James translate to such a strong and hard to move guy like Cedar. Yeah, I think fair play. Congratulations, Eruption Boys. Like we said, couldn't let this card go without doing the previews of all the fights, because they've just done such a good job to keep an amazing card together. I'll be watching. And you should be too. 3 Eruption titles, massive all professional lineup from Queensland. We'll put the live stream info in the description here. Jump on and have a look. If you're anywhere near the venue up in Queensland, go for a look. Yeah, Eruption always put on a 6 show. I've been up there for a few of them. It's a really, really high end production and moving from strength to strength for show. So get there if you can. If you can't, watch it on live stream. It's going to be absolutely sick. Looking forward to breaking it down next week. But for now, I'm going to go because it's 10:30 p.m. I will talk to you all next week, and see you soon.